actions like real sugar in cups. Confronting with the truth, you'll say it's all a hoax. He promised to release all the Epstein files that caused all the MAGA base to react with smiles. But how long has he put it off? It sure has been a while, and now he's calling this a hoax, protecting pedophiles. A hoax, a hoax. He says it's all a hoax. When at a press conference or witness milky strokes, he'll keep on gaslighting up until he crooks. Confronted with the truth, he'll say it's all a hoax.
Trump pile debt, trillions tall. Promised Mexico would fund that wall. Praised dictators, said they're strong. Had Joe done it, they'd say he's wrong. Had Biden done it, MAGA would flip. Had Biden done it, whole numbers would slip. Had Biden done it, they'd scream foul play. But Trump did it, so it must be okay. Go through crises, storms and more. Called soldiers losers who died in war. Hire his kids to run DC. If it was Hunter, they'd scream treachery. Had Biden done it, MAGA would flip. Had Biden done it, the numbers would slip. Had Biden done it, Fox News would say I made. But Trump did it, so it must be okay. Love Kim Jong-un, he wrote love letters that take the guns first, lose those rights forever. Signed you spending bills with glee. Had Joe done that, it'd be tyranny. Had Biden done it, MAGA would flip. Had Biden done it, whole numbers would slip. Had Biden done it, they shout out today. But Trump did it, so it must be okay. Kept secret files, countless untold. Said Putin's word was good as gold. Invited the Taliban to come to U.S. soil. If Joe had done that, they'd all recoil. Had Biden done it, MAGA would flip. Had Biden done it, the numbers would slip. Had Biden done it, they'd want him to pay. But Trump did it, so it must be okay. Double standards loud and clear. Rules for Trump, but not for peers. What they call treason, if Joe's the name, is patriotism when Donald's to blame. Had Biden done it, MAGA would flip. Had Biden done it, whole numbers would slip. Had Biden done it, they'd shout no way. But Trump did it, so it must be okay.
A self-proclaimed king, a groper in chief, stealing our country, a crooked orange thief. Faux patriots who are poorly educated, wearing red hats and also unvaccinated. Liberal Dan will see us through. It's the best show that you're not listening to. So when you hear the call, the animals unite. Liberal Dan Radio, talk from the left, that's right. A failing media that's barely treading water. They're too inept to fight this new world order. Corporate pigs are at the trough, hear the squeals. The swine won't bite the hands that feeds them meals. But Liberal Dan will see us flow. It's the best show that you're not listening to. too. So when you hear the call, animals unite. Liberal Dan Radio, talk from the left, that's right. A leftist voice on air, exposing MAGA treason, breaking through their lies with facts, logic, and reason, unmasking hypocrisy. The truth will be our guide. Call out their lies, justice is on our side. 'Cause liberal Dan will see us through. It's the best show that you're not listening to. So when you hear the call, animals unite. Liberal Dan Radio, talk from the left, that's right. Liberal Dan Radio, talk from the left, that's right.
And, well, excuse me, welcome back to Liberal Dan Radio, talk from the left, that's right. This is your host, Dan Zimmerman, coming at you live from New Orleans, Louisiana. We may open the phone lines in a little bit, really depends on how I feel. It's been a heck of a day, simply because my physical therapist made me tap out today with some of the stretching he had me doing, which is fine. It's got my leg to be able to straighten out to 5 degrees instead of 10 degrees, but we're getting there. 0 is the goal, but oof, it was tough. And it's funny because me and my wife had physical therapy at the same time today, and she comes in and asks him, "So you hurt him yet today?" And I was like, he made me tap out today. It was rough. So yeah. And then of course I have to stretch later as well, to do more stretching to keep up the good work. But I mean, I'm doing really well with it. But today was a doozy. Let me just tell you. This weekend was also a doozy. I guess pain med wise, or not pain med wise really, but I basically I wasn't getting much sleep, so I took a little extra something edible, so to speak, to help me with that. And that thing tends to give you the munchies, and so I had the munchies, and then I overdid it a little bit, and with the Zepbound that I've been using to help lose the weight, it gives you these like sulfur burps, and it's gross. Ugh. Like, it drives my kids crazy. My youngest one especially. I'll be in the car, if I let one of those sulfur burps out, he won't be happy. He'll be like, "Aw." So if I want to torture my kids, I can overeat too. So yeah. That was fun. Anyway, so shouts out to everyone currently excuse me, in the chats. We got Aaron and Orvilby over in the world of Twitch. Bunch more people over on YouTube, liberaldanradio.com. We got Jeff, got Steve, Jeff from north of Uranus, Steve from across the pond.
If it's no Scottish, it's crap.
We got Govan, we've got Pump Clono, welcome. Scott, Progressively Independent, good to see you as well. Suzanne is here. Molly, it's a joy to see you. CR, Marie. Don't want to skip anybody. Trying to Roxanne, good to see you as well. Botrix is in the chat. Yeah. Josh, funny. Hi, Josh. What's going on? And that is about. Jolie's here, the other half of the best mod squad on the planet. Thank you both for all of your help and all of the great things you do to help this podcast be as good as it can be. Thank you, Mike, for the kind words. Appreciate it. And hello, David from Grand Prairie as well. Thank you so much for joining too. Still got a bunch of stuff to talk about as it pertains to the whole Charlie Kirk thing. So we're going to talk about that in a little bit. I was going to talk about Russia's drone incursions into Poland that took place last week, but then the whole, somebody had to go on and murder Charlie Kirk, and well, we don't approve of political violence or any sort of, aggressive violence here on Liberal Dan Radio, Talk from Left, That's Right. Of course, just because we don't condone such actions, it doesn't mean that, we're not going to tell the truth, and we're not going to be disgusted and grossed out about the facts that people are venerating this person as a saint when he was nothing of the sort. Not one bit. And I understand that there are people who loved and cared about him and yada, yada, yada. I would say there's no accounting for taste. Of course, there are people who would say the same thing about those who know and love me. So, their feeling is mutual. I would not expect them to sit there and mourn my death either, when hopefully happens sometime way in the future, obviously. Way in the future. Yes, correct words. But because last week we didn't get to talk about it, certain things I wanted to make sure to cover this one at least. And of course now, Russia has sent drones into Romania and Lithuania as well. And wasn't it a certain presidential candidate last year who warned about this very thing that it could happen? Didn't Vice President Harris absolutely say during one of their debates, or their debate, that Poland could potentially be at risk if you put this appeaser-in-chief, our own version of Neville Chamberlain as it pertains to Vladimir Putin, in charge? She was spot on, or as Mona Lisa Vito would say, Marissa Tomei's character in My Cousin Vinny, was dead on balls accurate. So, yeah. September 13th, Russian drone entered Romanian airspace and remained for nearly an hour before exiting. The incident prompted Romania to scramble fighter jets to summon the Russian ambassador. Russian drones have entered Lithuanian territory twice in July 2025, and this follows the incursion of 20 Russian drones into Polish airspace on September 10th, 2025. Polish and NATO forces shot down some of the drones, marking the first time NATO forces have used force against Russian military assets during the Ukraine war. In response to these violations, NATO has launched Eastern Sentry, an operation to bolster defenses on the eastern flank bordering Russia. NATO officials have stressed that these are not isolated incidents and show a pattern of reckless and dangerous Russian behavior. And what's Donald Trump doing? Nada. Zip. Zero. Nothing. He's like, I'll increase our sanctions if Europe does the same, and he picked on some European countries for buying, I guess, Russian oil or whatever. Excuse me. I think a bug just flew up there. Excuse me, not a burp, but a cough. But anyway, yeah. So, god damn, this cough. Let me take a cough drop because it really got in the back of my throat. Damn. Sorry. Apologies for the coughing fit. And that's the other thing. Last week I was a little bit sick. I'm feeling much better, but whenever I get some sort of upper respiratory infection, it's guaranteed to become a lingering cough that lasts forever and ever and ever. So, yeah, fun for me. Anyway, so our old Neville Chamberlain, our appeaser-in-chief, Donald Trump, is not doing jack and shit to try and stop these Russian incursions of the drones into Europe, which is pretty much anybody with a working brain, which excludes a large fraction of MAGA, would have to understand that this is just them testing whatever it is that they're going to do. Because Russia's going to be like, well, we would like to have Poland next. It sounds good. And maybe some Lithuania, maybe, Romania as well. We like territory. Yes, it's very good. Donald Trump is absolutely the wrong person to be in this job to deal with Vladimir Putin. And they're like, oh, the Democrats are warmongers because they want war with Russia. Nobody wanted war with Russia. But when Ukraine gave up all their nukes, we were like, hey, the West is like, hey, including us, we're like, we will defend you if Russia comes a-knocking. Well, Russia's coming a-knocking, and Trump is bending over backwards and forwards, and whoever else Vladimir Putin wants him to bend over. Probably because, has the P-tape or whatever, I guess, right? Hey, Teresa, good to see you. Thank you. Just as I shot beer out of my nose on a cough, laugh, snort, watching Glenn Beck earlier. I'm sure they've come up with some amazing stuff on Glenn Beck recently, right? Yeah, America is in exile, Govan says, for electing this orange deformity twice. Yeah, I mean, what was it that George Bush said when he misquoted it? The fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. And said George W. Bush goes, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, never get fooled again. We apparently got very much fooled again. They said we won't get fooled again, but, apparently we did. Sorry to your eardrums, if anybody listening with a headset. I'm going to have a headset on too, so there you go. As old Trumpy boy says,
it is what it is.
Thank you, Donald. Anyway, hey, Michael, good to see you. Thank you for joining the chat. Hey, 250 Kilo Ohm over there on Twitch as well. But yeah, Russia is just going to continue to poke and prod and test to see how people are going to respond to him, and then take whatever action he feels necessary to gain more power and influence, because that's what Vladimir Putin wants to do. I'm surprised he hasn't start sending drones into Alaska yet. That's probably next, because I'm sure Putin would be like, I would like to have Alaska. We gave away Alaska too good of a deal. We got hosed in this deal. It was not an art of the deal type thing. We got hosed, and we need to have some Alaska back, or at least have America give us more money, or something like that. But yeah, watch that happening next, and see how Trump reacts at that point. Because we all know that Trump is Putin's little bitch, and he's not going to do anything. He'll play tough. He'll probably play just about as tough as Vladimir Putin allows him to be. Because he's making himself look weaker and weaker and weaker, but he knows who's holding the cards. Trump was trying to say that Zelensky didn't have the cards, which is hilarious when Zelensky gave him that look during that meeting at the Oval Office. But in reality, Trump doesn't have the cards because Putin is holding all of Trump's cards. Simple as that. So we will continue to monitor what's going on here. Some opinion pieces are saying NATO should impose a no-fly zone over Ukraine to protect against Russian drones. We'll see. I'm sure by Wednesday they will have probably launched a drone, not strikes, but drones into other countries as well, just to see, what are they going to do? They're not going to do nothing. They shoot down some drones. Who cares? Right? So, anyway. Enough about that. Enough about Trump's ineptitude when it comes to reacting to this. Let's go ahead. Part of what is, important today is just to talk about things like Mike Lee, Senator of Utah, had the gall on September 10th, on Wednesday, to say Charlie Kirk was an American patriot, an inspiration to countless young people to stand up and defend timeless truths that to make our country great. This murder was a cowardly act of violence and attack on champions of freedom like Charlie, the students who gathered Ford, blah, 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 blah. Americans who peacefully strive to save our nation. The terrorists will not win. Charlie will. Please join us in praying for his wife. Of course, he said the exact opposite sort of thing when Melissa Hortman and her husband were assassinated. He goes, this is what happens when Marxists don't get their way. Which just goes to show, you know, they have no problems making deplorable comments about, you know, the people, when it's people on the left that die, when it's people on the left that's assassinated, when it's people who the left, who typically vote for the left, like, you know, all of the horrible comments made about George Floyd and frickin' Charlie Kirk wanting to, you know, have somebody, or have him be paroled, have, what's his face, be paroled after what he did to George Floyd by kneeling on his neck. Oh, that's how they were trained. No, it wasn't. He was not trained to sit on somebody's neck for 9 frickin' minutes. You're just justifying your racism with thinly veiled attempts. Like, the whole thing about black pilots and how he would be nervous if he saw a black pilot on a plane. Like, and they were like, oh, he was just talking about DEI. No, he was lying about DEI, with trying to claim that an airline would hire an underqualified person when they wouldn't, and using that as a very thinly veiled attempt to cover his racism. But the veil was so thin you could see right through it. It was transparent. So, anyway. But there's a whole bunch of this hypocrisy going on, which causes us to have this week's Hypocrites of the Week. This week's Hypocrites of the Week are too many to name. The anti-cancel culture, what about free speech crowd is doubling, tripling, and quadrupling down on their hypocrisy. These folks hate cancel culture when it comes to them getting canceled, but will create whole websites meant to cancel the left if they cross some line in response to Charlie Kirk's death. These folks will say, what about free speech, when their speech leads to consequences, but demand consequences for others. To see who next week's Hypocrites of the Week will be, tune in live Mondays and Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Central at liberaldanradio.com or twitch.liberaldanradio.com for more talk from the left. That's right. And there you go. This week's Hypocrites of the Week are pretty much the entirety of MAGAdom, conservatism, whatever. The entirety of them and their ridiculousness. Because I could point, there's so many of them, it's just hard to find where, well, you'll have somebody who's on the right. Either they say something or somebody else on the right will say something, and then they'll get canceled or they'll lose their job and they'll get fired, and all of a sudden they'll be, well, what about free speech? And then we have to explain to these idiots that free speech does not mean that your speech is free from consequences, and that, you know, if you say something that maybe your employer doesn't like, your employer may very well shit can you. And that doesn't change here either. If you're out there celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk and your employer's not happy about it and you live in an at-will state, then guess what? You might very well get shit canned too. Because your speech is not free from consequences either. I'm not going to sit here. I'm not going to be like, well, you know, why is it, if it can't happen to them, why does it happen to us? But I will point out the hypocrisy of them calling for it to happen to us. Now, they had some website like charliesmurderers.com or something that was basically, you know, doxing a whole crap ton of people, and which at the very least, I created some Google alerts on my name and on Liberal Dan Radio just to make sure that if anything does happen to pop up on a website, that maybe I'll see it. But now they changed their website to like Charlie Kirk data or something, and they're going to be trying to, they're going to be collecting information, but they don't really know what, or they haven't really said, they haven't been really specific as compared to the last iteration that got taken down. So these people are more than happy to cancel people or to, you know, be critical of your speech when it's you, because to them, rights only exist for conservatives. Rights don't exist for liberals. Rights don't exist for leftists. Rights don't exist for anybody who disagrees with their worldview. Josh says, I'm still waiting to see one example of celebration. I think I may have seen one or two jovial posts on TikTok, but that's the thing. is that one of the things that we need to take into consideration, and maybe it's one of the reasons why Hal Sparks calls TikTok malware. But I mean, this is true for many a social media platform, and not just to TikTok. For TikTok, although TikTok probably does it much more egregiously, which is that when I look at TikTok, I am going to get videos that are going to make me want to engage with them, which doesn't mean I'm going to see a bunch of leftist liberal creator stuff unless I'm actively fighting with leftists about certain things. It's going to basically show me a whole bunch of right-wing content, and it's not just going to show me the right-wing content that is, you know, tame and let's have a national sales tax and yada yada yada. It's a bunch of conservative rednecks saying that it's time, and if you give us the call, we will accept the call, or less thinly veiled threats of, you know, that we are going to come after you and we're going to take you out, libs, or whatever. That's what they're saying on these TikTok videos. I've gotten a couple of them taken down just because, or reported them because it was like, this should be too far, and it was too far. So apparently for TikTok, which is, you know, amazing that they would say something is too far. Now, on the other hand, if you're a conservative who you're looking at TikTok, you're not likely going to see somebody like myself who will sit here and say, oh, I don't believe he should have been murdered, but here's my issues with his policy positions and where he stood or whatever. You're not going to see that if you're a conservative. What you're going to see is somebody who's, you know, sitting there and doing a little dance, making a little love, and getting down tonight over the idea that Charlie Kirk got one in the throat. So that's what you're going to see, and you're going to see it on all sorts of social media platforms as well. But that's the one thing that I think everybody needs to take into consideration. One thing that everybody needs to consider is that when you're seeing the worst of the worst on social media, it's because that's what social media is feeding you to get more enraged, and it helps to cause the divide between the two sides. When in reality, you probably have a whole bunch of people who, you know, would, if they saw the majority of what people thought, it wouldn't be as pissed off, I guess, at the left, so to speak. And I don't know why they're pissed off at the left. I mean, I understand that they might be pissed off on the left for the people who do seem a little jovial and happy over the whole thing. But it's a right-winger. It's a right-winger that did it. It's somebody who was on the far right. The Groypers, so to speak. Sometimes called the Groyper Army, a group of alt-right white nationalists, Christian nationalists, led by Nick Fuentes, you know, who was the one who said, "Your body, my choice." Loosely defined group of Fuentes followers and fans, blah, blah, blah. After him, there's no clear second in Groyper hierarchy, blah, blah, blah. They use a cartoon amphibian frog, yada, yada, yada. A bunch of anti-Semites, and they were not happy with Charlie Kirk. So at the 2019 Politicon convention, Fuentes tried to attend several Turning Points events featuring its founder Charlie Kirk, including a line to take photos with Kirk and Kirk's debate with Kyle Klinsky of the Young Turks. Security repeatedly barred him from being allowed near Kirk, and Fuentes accused Kirk of suppressing him to avoid a confrontation, as Fuentes had grown critical of Kirk's positions, which he believes were too weak, because Nick Fuentes believes that Charlie Kirk was way too not conservative enough for his tastes. Blah, blah, blah. In retaliation for the firing of St. Clair in the Politicon incident, Fuentes began organizing a social media campaign, asking his followers to go to Kirk's events and ask provocative and controversial leading questions about his stances on immigration, Israel, LGBT rights, to expose Kirk as a fake conservative. At a culture war event hosted by Ohio State University, 11 out of 14 questions were asked by Groypers. These questions include: can you prove that our white European ideals will be maintained in the country if the country is no longer made up of white European descendants? Blah, blah, blah. How does... don't want to say that. Sort of commentator Michelle Malkin wrote an article for American Greatness attacking Kirk's immigration policies. Yada, yada, yada. So the Groypers have been targeting Charlie Kirk for a while. And this guy, as far as I can see, I've seen nothing that actually says that he's a left. The only thing that people try and use to claim that this guy is a leftist or whatever is, oh, he was supposedly dating somebody who was maybe trans, and what Republican would date somebody who was a trans woman, i.e., they would consider that gay. Of course, if you're a man dating a trans woman, that doesn't make you gay. You'd still be in a heterosexual relationship because trans women are women. That being said, to a conservative who doesn't believe in, anything good pertaining to trans people, you're going to end up getting the situation where, they're going to view that as a homosexual relationship. But Republicans would never date in a homosexual relationship, right? Except for, what was it, Larry Craig, who was in a toe tapping incident in the airport, trying to tap somebody's feet, trying to get a little bit of a hanky panky going on in the airport. You have the fact that Grindr was crashed when Grindr crashed in the middle of the Republican National Convention, because you have a whole lot of Republicans who can't admit that they're gay, but they absolutely will act on it, at least in private. So, yeah. The idea that a right-winger couldn't possibly fetishize a trans woman or, be in a homosexual relationship against, their own best interests is just absurd. And of course, what else? Anyway, so that's the idea that should go ahead and debunk the whole claim that the killer can't have possibly been on the right wing because he potentially was dating somebody who was trans. So anyway, somebody else had asked whether or not Tucker Carlson had made some comments about Charlie Kirk. According to the Daily Beast, Tucker Carlson has railed against individuals who are using the assassination of Charlie Kirk to further their own causes and ambitions. He goes, the right-wing commentator did not call anybody out by name, but asserted that the act, particularly when carried out by foreign heads of state, has been disgusting, which is a clearly and thinly veiled attempt to attack Netanyahu. Of course, I don't necessarily think you should be thinly veiled when you're criticizing Netanyahu. You should be criticizing Netanyahu full-throatedly, because Netanyahu's done a lot of things that's worthy of criticism, including coming out and saying kind words about Charlie Kirk, because the people who like Charlie Kirk don't like you, and don't like me, don't like Jews, a large portion of us at least. So Michael Hunt says, so it was a MAGA trans dater. It may very well. I don't know if it was MAGA. It might have been even to the right of MAGA. It was a, from what we're seeing, and things could change. Maybe it'll eventually come out that he did flip to the left at the last minute, but he was also raised in a culture of right-wing violence, right-wing gun violence, etc. So he was raised by the right wing. So even if he somehow flipped left at the very last minute, he still learned based from all of these right-wing, stories. But again, the idea that, these people, these MAGA conservatives, like on TikTok, whatever, making all these threatening videos, were just assuming that it had to be somebody on the left, and therefore that they were going to go out. And of course, one of the Utah senators, the other Utah senator, John Curtis, says, wants Democrats to give vengeful conservatives grace after Charlie's death. What? We're supposed to give conservatives grace for acting like miserable, violent pieces of shit? GOP senator asks Democrats for grace as Donald Trump Jr. whitewashes his own behavior, and Steve Bannon calls for war. In the wake of the shooting death of right-wing activists in Utah, some Republicans have insisted that the movement is at war with what they see as the radical left, a catch-all term that encompasses most of the Democratic Party. And trust me, if you are actually on the radical left, you're going to laugh at the idea that the Democratic Party is on the radical left. But I guess when you're conservative, when you're MAGA, when you're so far to the right that you can't even see the difference between a centrist and a socialist, you might go ahead and be like, well, what's the difference? So Some of his own colleagues insist that calls for political violence are solely perpetuated by Democrats, ignoring these very calls from the president's line of supporters. A Utah Republican senator is calling on the targets of a recurring GOP blame game to take things in stride. John Curtis told ABC's This Week Sunday that Democrats would see their efforts to mend fences go a long way by ignoring the clumsy recriminations of Kirk's allies. Which says, Trump says George Soros should be in jail for supporting progressive causes. He's a bad guy. So supporting a progressive cause means that George Soros should go to jail, should go to prison. And of course, any time they bring up George Soros, it just means Jews. President baselessly accuses Hungarian-born Holocaust survivor of funding protesters against his administration, which of course riles up the conservatives, riles up the Nick Fuentes group, riles up a whole bunch of other people, and not only makes them want to go after the left, it makes them want to go after Jewish people specifically, because again, when you say George Soros, that's code for the Jews. So, but lather, rinse, repeat, right? That's what happens. Let's see, Larry Craig had a wide stance. That's what he says, supposedly. That's what he said. Let's see. Big Hook's in the chat. Good to see you, Big Hook. Big Hook. Thank you for joining. Josh says, I'm not going to say either is a phrase my phone needs to learn. Which phrase? With the Groiper one or what? Trying to see if anybody else. Lindsey Graham would never, Jeff Curry says. Exactly. He would never be down on the down low, right? Never, ever, ever. Not one iota of gayness in Lindsey Graham's body. Hey, Lucky Minute, thank you for joining. But anyway, so we have what else? This. So JD Vance today. I don't understand what the deal with this is, because to me, if you're going to guest host on somebody's podcast, that helping their commercial venture, I guess the estate of Charlie Kirk's, or whatever the corporation I guess is now, the Turning Point USA, whatever corporate entity holds the rights to the Charlie Kirk show now that Charlie Kirk has passed on, has been murdered or whatever. If you're going to be the vice president of these United States and have and sub in for old Charlie Kirk, at least for today, you should, be doing it from someplace other than the White House. The White House should not be doing it from the White House. But anyway, so we're going to start. We're going to go back and forth at least at this beginning part, because Vance starts off by telling a doozy of a lie.
The Nation magazine about my dear friend Charlie Kirk. Now, The Nation isn't a fringe blog. It's a well-funded, well-respected magazine whose publishing history goes back to the American Civil War.
And who owns it now?
George Soros's.
There you go. Again, another attack against George Soros. And again, when they say George Soros, they mean Jews. Let's get back to it.
Open Society Foundation funds this magazine, as does the Ford Foundation and many other wealthy titans of the American progressive movement. The writer accuses Charlie of saying, and I quote, "Black women do not have brain processing power to be taken seriously." But if you go and watch the clip, the very clip she links to, you realize he never said anything like that. He never uttered those words.
Okay, very important thing. Two things. One, he says he never uttered those words, and that he never uttered, and that he, hold on a second. He never uttered those words, and he also, never said anything like that. So never uttered those words, never said anything like that. Keep those two things in your brains, because as we go back to here and we see this, the Charlie Kirk show with Charlie Kirk right there, live and in color. Well, I guess recorded in color at this point.
Joy Reid and Michelle Obama and Sheila Jackson Lee and Ketanji Brown Jackson were affirmative action picks, we would have been called the racist. But now they're coming out and they're saying it for us.
Now, why is it racist? Like, what's the deal with that? But, okay.
They're coming out and they're saying, I'm only here because of affirmative action. Yeah, we know. You do not have the brain processing power to otherwise be taken really seriously.
Now, let's go back and listen to the other words again to see what it is. Oh, yeah, what it is that he said. Let's go back to the other video and just listen to again what he said. We're going to hear it again. Black people do not have the brain processing power to be... Oh, wait. Hold on. I didn't play the audio. Let's play it again.
Have brain and progressive movement. The writer accuses Charlie of saying, and I quote, "Black women do not have brain processing power to be taken seriously."
Black women do not have brain processing power to be taken seriously. Let's go back to the video with Charlie Kirk and see what he says.
Affirmative action. Yeah, we know. You do not have the brain processing power to otherwise be taken really seriously.
So he had a couple of words there. He said to be taken really seriously, but he said to be taken seriously is in there. And he didn't say black women. He said you, referring to the previous 4 women who he just mentioned. It's amazing. And here's the sad thing, is that there will be fact checkers out there that will be like, oh, well, he didn't say those exact words, so JD Vance is correct. No. JD Vance is not correct. He is a big fat liar, couch-humping liar, in defense of his dead friend who said these shitty things. And I'm just not going to not lie about what he says. I'm not going to sit here and let other people lie about what he said as well. Because just because he, as a preacher said earlier today or sometime over the weekend, death does not absolve you of the wrongs you did in life. Maybe I'm paraphrasing that, but that's basically the gist of it. Death does not absolve you of the wrongs you've done in life. And Charlie Kirk here is being absolutely racist, absolutely said,
you do not have the brain processing power to otherwise be taken really seriously. You
and of course he says it with a smug, arrogant smile.
Had to go steal a white person's slot to go be
You had to go steal a white person's slot, too. Again, racist.
taken somewhat seriously. Play cut 52.
But I rise today as a clear recipient of affirmative action.
And this is very important here because this shows, it explains why they don't understand what affirmative action is and what it does and why it was needed, I guess, until the Supreme Court nuked a whole bunch of it. But, you know, and remember the Young Turks agreed with that decision, by the way.
Particularly in higher education. I may have been admitted on affirmative action, both in terms of being a woman and a woman of color. But I can declare that I did not graduate on affirmative action. This is my personal story.
And there's nothing wrong with that. And she's acknowledging the fact that maybe she was assisted by, you know, them trying to get people into the college that, you know, they might not have previously had access to simply because of the history of racism, systemic racism that exists in this country and the attempts of our society, by at least some people in our society, to try and improve the situation and make things better after decades and centuries of wrongs done to Black Americans and other Americans who've dealt with marginalization and oppression in this country. But Charlie Kirk and his ilk don't understand that.
I hear because of action affirmative. She can't even say that. We know. It's very obvious to us that you were not smart enough to be able to get in on your own.
And look, she didn't say that she wasn't smart enough. She said that she was aided to, because a lot of times affirmative action, a lot of times the systems will be like, okay, here are two people who are equally qualified, and because we want to make sure that more black people get in because of, you know, the fact that black people and on the whole have been treated shitty by this country, that we're going to use that as a tiebreaker. But he doesn't want to even acknowledge that idea, that it was used as a tiebreaker in many circumstances. Say, okay, here are two equally situated people, but this black person likely had to work a lot more to get to where they needed to be in order to be able to be in this consideration for the qualification for to be admitted into this college or whatever, because of all of the injustices and stuff that has happened from our country to black people over our history. Therefore, making people have to jump through hoops, even if it's just jumping through hoops of, you know, not getting arrested for a DWB, or not getting, you know, having to deal with harassing cops or other people, not having your application just turned away simply because of what your name is.
I couldn't make it on my own, so I needed to take opportunities from someone more deserving. You know, this is how arrogant Joy Reid and Ketanji Brown Jackson.
That's how arrogant they are. Look how arrogant this person is. And you're wondering why people don't want to mourn him. He was trash. He was absolute and utter trash. And that doesn't stop being a fact just because somebody murdered him. And look, if the person that murdered him should get punished, should get, you know, get the due process that every accused criminal is entitled to, and then when he's convicted should be given a harsh penalty. It doesn't stop the fact that Charlie Kirk said a whole bunch of trashy things. And who says a whole bunch of trashy things? Trashy people.
Michelle Obama and Sheila Jackson Lee are. They're so narcissistic, they think this is persuasive. They think we're like, oh, of course. That's why we need affirmative action. Because you have impressed us with your brilliance. Of course. Oh no, imagine the world without Joy Reid. Imagine the world without Sheila Jackson Lee or
Sheila Jackson Lee,
Michelle Obama or Ketanji Brown Jackson. They think this is persuasive.
I mean, the people with brain cells,
now
it should be.
That I'm only here because of anti-white, anti-Asian forced discrimination policies.
It's not anti-white, anti-Asian. It's the fact that we've had discriminatory policies in this country for centuries that people are trying to make up for. Simple as that.
That turned me into a bitter, resentful activist.
And yeah, DEI, someone mentioned DEI, DEI helping hand, Trumpy got it huge. Yeah, I mean, DEI helps mostly white women. That's who DEI helps mostly. White women. I mean, let's have enough of this jackass, at least for now. We'll head on back over and watch more of JD on the former Charlie Kirk's show and see what his dumbass has to say after we've proven him completely 100% wrong.
But if you go and watch the clip, the very clip she links to, you realize he never said anything like that. He never uttered those words.
He did, and he did. Fuck off.
He made an argument against affirmative action as a policy.
No, he said those words while trying to fight against affirmative action. But because he was fighting against something that you don't like, it doesn't mean he didn't say those words or say anything like that. He did both.
He criticized a specific Supreme Court justice as an individual. He never said it.
He criticized a group of black women as individuals or as a group, and he called them you as a group. Because, and he considers, that's the problem with fact checkers too. Because fact checkers would be like, oh, well, technically he's correct because he only talked about the 4 people. He didn't say all black women. But in reality, we all know what he meant. Because if you look at his history of racism, if you look at the history of racist comments that he made, you clearly see that he has a disdain, or he had a disdain for black people. And he was using these four as an example to show his utter disdain that he has for black women. And if you deny that, you're a fucking idiot. Exactly. MJ Dano says, Couch Sniffer knows this audience will never go to fact check anything he says. Of course not. Which is why we need a much wider, broader, progressive, left-wing content creator, army, for lack of a better word, that can actually get together and constantly fight these words. But unfortunately, we don't have what it takes right now to combat the right-wing propaganda machine that exists across the internet. And we need to have it. We need to raise up everybody to be able to explain to and counteract the arguments that are being made by these racist right-wingers, including Vance, who's being an apologist for his buddy Kirk.
Anything about black women as a group, he made an argument for judging people of all races and backgrounds by their own individual merit.
He did not shut up.
The very evidence she provides, this hack of a writer, shows that she lied about a dead man, and yet she wrote it. An esteemed magazine published it. It made it through the editors, and of course, liberal billionaires rewarded.
You're not going to believe what happened. Tell me
Liberal billionaires rewarded. You're not going to believe what happened.
So I started the biggest...
that attack. Now, of course, even if Charlie...
Again, the fact that he was dead is irrelevant. He said those words. And the reason those words are coming back to haunt him, literally, is because he said those words. And now he's in the news because someone murdered him. But I'm sure it would be brought up again about him in other ways and other times. But still, you're not going to... The more the right tries to venerate Charlie Kirk, the more the right tries to lift him up as a saint or somebody to be idolatized or worshipped or whatever they want to do with him, the more that we're going to step up and say, like, no, this is ridiculous. Stop being stupid. This is what he really said. This is what he really meant. It's the Goddess Kimchi. Good to see you, Goddess Kimchi.
He had uttered those words, it wouldn't mean that he deserved his fate, but
he did utter those words. And I'm not saying he deserved his fate. But again, y'all are venerating him as being some sort of swell guy. But he's not. He wasn't.
consider.
Yeah, Steven Sayers heard on local radio that someone started a GoFundMe for Charlie Kirk's family. Not only a GoFundMe, but also a, Give, Send, Go, the conservative version of it. They started both of them for him when he was worth like $15 million or whatever. He had a net worth of $15 million. I don't think they need a GoFundMe. Roxanne, of course, they do have disdain for women in general, but for black women specifically as well. So, the plump Kiana, JD Vance for president was just a whisper in the wind, and if you looked away for a second, it would completely disappear. Marcus Aurelius.
The level of propaganda at work. Charlie was gunned down in broad daylight, and well-funded institutions of the left lied about what he said so as to justify his murder.
No, that is, again, not what these people are saying, not what I'm saying, not what most of them are saying. We're not saying his murder was justified. We're saying that his veneration, y'all's attempt to lift him up as some paragon of virtue, that's what's not justified. If y'all just want to sit here and be like, Charlie Kirk died, we're going to mourn him, okay. But the louder y'all raise him up into sainthood, the louder y'all try and elevate him into something more than what he was, we're going to be like, nah, sorry, that doesn't work. Nah, fam.
This is soulless and evil.
As was Charlie Kirk.
But I was struck not just by the dishonesty of this smear, but by the
Again, it wasn't a dishonest. It wasn't a smear. It was a factual representation of what he said.
Over a young husband's and young father's death. Quote, she says, he was an unrepentant racist, transphobe, homophobe, and misogynist.
Where's the lie? I don't see the lie. Do you? Anybody out there in my audience see the lie? Anybody else watching after the show see the lie? Please make sure to comment down below. I'd love to hear it. Because it was not a lie. Because you can go to and find all of the things that he said, and it all, you know, anybody who's a reasonable person can be like, yep, that was racist. Yep, that was sexist. What was it? What he said about Taylor Swift? That she should submit to her husband because he should be in charge, despite the fact that she's a billionaire and he ain't. I mean, he's rich, but he's not a billionaire. And that's not sexist? Fuck off.
The Nation wrote, who often wrapped his bigotry in Bible verses because there was no other way to pretend that it was morally correct.
Where's the lie?
He had children, as do many vile people. That's what they said. He had children, as do many vile people. Now,
Oh yeah, many vile people have children, and that they shouldn't have to. Those children should not have to see their parents murdered, or have to know that their parents were murdered. But that didn't stop him from being a vile person.
hours before this smear was published, my wife and I had the honor of escorting Charlie's body back to his home in Arizona. We took his wife, Erica, we love you, his parents, his sister, and a few of his best friends with us. And as they offloaded Charlie's casket from Air Force Two, I worried that Erica would collapse with grief. Now, I'm a very lucky husband to a very wonderful wife, but I have never been prouder of my wife than that moment as she held Erica in Erica's very darkest hour. And I thought of Erica as I read that disgusting attack on Charlie. He had children, as do many vile people. That's what they said.
And the reason why the author said he had children is because that's not an excuse. Like, if someone doesn't have children, it just somehow justifies them being killed? No, not at all. He had children is irrelevant. If somebody was childless and unmarried and got murdered, guess what? That would be wrong too. Right? So the fact that I feel sorry for the kids. I feel sad for the kids. Only people I probably feel sad for in the whole thing. But it's still, it doesn't, having kids or not having kids doesn't make you any more or less a viable target, I should say. You know, just because you have kids doesn't mean you're somebody who'd be like, oh, well, I'm going to kill these two people, but this person has kids and this one doesn't, so let me go to this one instead. Like, nobody should be murdered. F off.
Said about him. I said the Lord's Prayer. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven.
Well, Vance is mad at whoever, and, you know, I think it looks like it's more, I don't even know if it's MAGA at this point. I don't know if the Groypers count as MAGA or not. They might, but...
And I asked Usha what Erica had said to her earlier in the day in a private moment, and I asked Erica's permission to share this. My wife told me, she asked me for advice. Erica asked me for advice on how she should tell her children that their father had been murdered. She asked my wife how to tell her beautiful kids that their father and my dear...
I don't know, Mike. I was trying to think of a correct word to say it. As what I said, somebody who should be killed versus somebody who shouldn't be killed. Nobody should be murdered. That's my point. You know, I knew that was going to be nitpicked by somebody. Nobody should be murdered. Whether or not you have kids or not shouldn't play into consideration as to whether or not anybody should be murdered, because nobody should be murdered. Regardless of whether or not they have kids, regardless of whether or not they're married, whatever. Jesus.
Very dear friend is no longer with us. And as she was doing it, there were people dancing on that father's grave. Now, I have heard many calls in the last few days for unity and for healing in the wake of Charlie's assassination. You have no idea how desperately I want that, how gratified I was.
I don't believe you. You once said that Donald Trump was America's Hitler, but then chose to run with him for president in 2024. So no, I don't believe you that you desperately want that to happen. Not one bit. You're a big fat liar.
When Democratic friends and even former Senate colleagues reached out to offer their condolences to me, I'm so thankful. And I know there are so many like them all across our great country.
But everything before but's a lie, right?
I am desperate to wrap my arms around them as we all unite to condemn political violence and the ideas that cause it. Psalm 133 tells us, "Behold how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity. It is like the precious ointment upon the head." Oh, how badly have I craved that precious ointment in recent days, and I believe we can have it. But first, we must tell the truth.
But first we must tell the truth. Well, how about you start? You start by telling the truth there, bucko. You just lied the entire time previously about your friend who absolutely did say those words. But go ahead. Tell us how we should be telling the truth when you're just covering it with all your lies.
It's the only way to honor Charlie, for what was he, if not a man who told the truth?
No, he did not tell the truth whatsoever. He was a big fat liar. He would tell statistics about, who murdered people, who was responsible for the most murders, and in reality, it wasn't. The numbers he was using was incorrect to artificially inflate the number of black people who are incarcerated, just so he can make his point about black people being the cause of all the problems in this country, because he was a fucking racist.
In every place, in every environment. Now, the most important truth Charlie told is this: that long ago a man, begotten, not made, came down from heaven, and by the Holy Spirit was incarnate of the Virgin Mary and became man.
Oh, you had to go look at your notes? You don't know this by heart? What a bad Christian you must be.
For our sake, he was crucified under Pontius Pilate and suffered death and was buried and rose again on the third day. Charlie believed, as I do, that all the truth he told flowed from that fundamental principle.
And if you actually believe that crap, then you should go click on the link in the show description to go buy John Fugelsang's book, Separation of Church and Hate, which will clearly tell you exactly why that is a false statement made by JD Vance right there.
I really do believe that we can come together in this country.
But we can come together in this country. You just have to accept the bullshit that I'm peddling right now from the White House on a private podcast.
I believe we must. But unity, real unity, can be found only after climbing the mountain of truth. And there are
You first.
difficult truths we must confront in our country. One truth is that 24% of self-described, quote, very liberals believe it is acceptable to be happy about the death of a political opponent.
How many Republicans?
While only 3% of self-described very conservatives agree.
3% self-described very conservatives. Let's go back for a second. Let's listen to how he manipulates that data.
One truth is that 24% of self-described, quote, very liberals believe it is acceptable to be happy about the death of a political opponent, while only 3% of self-described very conservatives agree. 3%
self-described
is too many,
very
conservatives. Another
conservatives.
truth is that 26% of young liberals believe political violence is sometimes justified, and only 7% of young conservatives say the same. Again, too high a number. In a country of 330 million people, you can, of course, find one person of a given political persuasion justifying this or that or almost anything. But the data...
Imagine being able to build an app with your name on it just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44.
is clear.
The data is clear. What's
People
the
on
data
the left
say?
are much likelier to defend and celebrate political violence. This is not a both sides problem. If both sides have a problem, one side has a much bigger and
It's not a both sides problem, but if it is a both side problem, one side has a bigger problem, which means I just lied about the first comment, right?
malignant problem, and that is the truth we must be told. That problem has terrible consequences. The leader of our party, Donald J. Trump, escaped an assassin's bullet by less than an inch. Our House Majority Leader, Stephen Scalise, came
Our House Majority Leader, Stephen Scalise. What? What?
within seconds of death by an assassin himself. And now, the most influential conservative activist in generations, our friend Charlie, has been murdered. This violence, it doesn't come from nowhere. Now, any political movement, violent or not violent, is a collection of forces. It's like a pyramid that stacks on top, one support on top of the other. That pyramid's got a foundation of donors, of activists, of journalists, now of social media influencers, and of course of politicians. Not every member of that pyramid would commit a murder. In fact, over 99% I'm sure would not. But by celebrating that murder, apologizing for it, and emphasizing not Charlie's innocence, but the fact that he said things some didn't like, even to the point of lying about what he actually said.
We didn't lie about it.
Many of these people are creating an environment where things like this are inevitably going to happen. A couple of months ago, I headlined a fundraiser in Southern California, and since, we'd be out there anyways, my wife and I decided to take our kids to Disneyland one weekend. We had fun, and to be clear, most of the guests said very nice things, or they just left us alone. But there was a loud and very cool minority that would shout at my children, who were 8, 5, and 3, whenever they got the opportunity. "You should disown your dad, you little," one middle-aged woman yelled at my 5-year-old.
Is that on video? Because I don't believe you, because, you're a liar. Again, why should I believe you when you've already lied? Boy who cried wolf, right?
"Tell the Secret Service to protect the Constitution, not your father," screamed another. Are these women violent? Probably not. Are they deranged? Certainly. And while our side...
Yeah, and I would never do that. I would never yell at somebody's kids about, what they tell their dad. I'd tell their dad something to their face themselves. Not that probably wouldn't do it in front of their kids either outside at an event. But still, that's the problem. He's trying to paint the entirety of liberalism by these few people, yet is refusing, hiding his head in the sand, to talk about conservatives who are doing all their violent conservative crap and all the threats that they're making that, Utah Senator says we're supposed to give them grace. Nope, screw you.
Side of the aisle certainly has its crazies. It is a statistical fact that most of the lunatics in American politics today are proud members of the far left.
Yes. Show us your numbers there, JD. I mean, you're doing a podcast, right? You should be able to show some statistics somewhere up on the board.
After Charlie died, one of his friends and one of our senior White House staffers had left-leaning operatives in his neighborhood passing out leaflets telling people what he looked like and where he lived, encouraging neighbors to harass him or, God forbid, to do worse. While he was mourning his dead friend, he and his wife had to worry about the political terrorists drawing a big target on.
And there are people on the left who are now who have been doxxed by the people on the right who are, who have, released people's names and have basically had to move their kids to somewhere else because they were afraid that their kids are going to be harmed. So again, yes, you have several psychos on each side of the aisle who are going to be psychos, but what you're doing, Mr. Vance, Mr. Vice President, is you're trying to paint everybody on the left with the actions of a few. And that's the problem.
The home he shares with his young children. Are these people violent? I hope not. But are they guilty of encouraging violence? You damn well better believe it.
And as you're doing right now, by trying to convince everybody that you're talking to that the problem is with the left and not with these few crazies. As I said before, when I'm watching social media, when I see, so I have to understand and I have to process the fact that I understand that the algorithm is going to show me the worst of the worst, because it's going to get higher probabilities of engagement from me in responding to their BSery. That's what it's going to do. And I have to be able to recognize that this is them showing me the worst of the worst, and that not all of the people who are on the right are sitting there trying to claim that they're going to threaten to come attack us and invade us or kill us or whatever it is they want to do to us. But our vice president apparently doesn't have that capability.
We can thank God that most Democrats don't share these attitudes, and I do, while acknowledging that something has gone very wrong with a lunatic fringe, a minority, but a growing.
Finally, he actually said something that makes it a minority, but it took you this long. That's the problem. It took you this long to say it. Took you this long to say it, so people are already riled up and they're not going to listen to you at this point.
And powerful minority on the far left.
Surrender Monkey, this looks like a badly scripted baked potato outrage meme than an actual statement by the government. It's not even a statement by the government. It's coming from the White House, and it's coming from the vice president, but it's a statement on a private podcast.
There is no unity with people who scream at children over their parents' politics. There is no unity with someone who lies.
And there's no unity with people who were threatened to, declare war on the entirety of the left when they didn't even know if it was a left-winger or not that did it.
It's about what Charlie Kirk said in order to excuse his murder.
And again, we didn't say that Charlie Kirk's murder is excused by, what he said. We're just pointing out what he said when y'all try to make him into a saint.
No unity with someone who harasses an innocent family the day after the father of that family lost a dear friend. There is no unity with the people who celebrate Charlie Kirk's assassination. And there is no unity with the people who fund these articles, who pay the salaries of these terrorist sympathizers, who argue that Charlie...
See, now he's spreading it out. He's spreading it out more and more and more to try and get you to hate more and more of the left, because basically using the political power of his office to enrage his followers to hate more and more and more people. Because notice he said it's a small minority, but then he's starting to add in more groups, more groups, more groups.
Charlie Kirk, a loving husband and father, deserved a shot to the neck because he spoke words with which they disagree.
Nope. Again, you're lying.
Did you know that the George Soros Open Society Foundation and the Ford Foundation, the groups who funded that disgusting article justifying Charlie's death, do you know they benefit from generous tax treatment? They are literally subsidized by you and me.
Many corporations in this country get very favorable tax treatment. I'm all for. If you want to stop, giving them preferential tax treatment, let's do it for every big company then. We'll all get on board with it. We'll happily do it. But don't just cherry pick here and there. Do it for everybody. Make sure that everybody doesn't get that favorable tax treatment that is clearly unfair.
The American taxpayer, and how do they reward us? By setting fire to the house built by the American family over 250 years.
What?
I'm desperate for our country to be united in
No, you're not. Again, you wouldn't have been the vice presidential candidate of the person you called America's Hitler if you were desperate for such a thing.
Condemnation of the actions and the ideas that killed my friend. I want it so badly that I will tell you a difficult truth. We can only have it with people who acknowledge that political violence is unacceptable, and when we work to dismantle the institutions that promote violence and terrorism in our own country.
So get rid of the Republican Party then. Get rid of the Republican Party. Get rid of MAGA. Because, what else did MAGA do on January 6th? But violence and terrorism, attacking cops. Right? But your guy pardoned them. It was okay when their violence was okay. Because it was in response to, a bad election that they didn't like.
And
It's
our
almost over,
government,
Big Hook.
You heard me talk to Stephen Miller about this. We'll be working very hard to do exactly that in the months.
I'm frankly surprised I haven't been gotten with a copyright violation or something, simply because of the fact that I'm playing something from Charlie Kirk's podcast.
To come. We're not always going to get it right. We will sometimes move more slowly than you would like. We will sometimes move more slowly than I want us to. But I promise you that we will explore every option to bring real unity to our country and stop.
We will force unity down your throat. We will make sure that you'll be unified with us and you'll like it. And those who don't like it are going to be sent to camps. Because that's how it starts.
Stop those who would kill their fellow Americans because they don't like what they say. But you have a role too. Civil society, Charlie understood this well, is not just something that flows from the government. It flows from each and every one of us. It flows from all of us. So when you see someone celebrating Charlie's murder, call them out. And hell, call their employer.
Call their employer. Cancel culture. What happened to cancel culture being a bad thing, being a toxic, being a cancer? Cancel culture. Call their employer. Be a Karen. Because you think that their response is unnecessary. Now, I don't believe that anybody would be able to call my employer and say, like, hey, I think Dan's acting irresponsible here, because all I'm doing is talking about my opinions of the person. I'm not saying that I'm not celebrating a death at all. I'm saying it shouldn't happen. But there are going to be people who are going to watch what I say and who are going to be like, Dan's celebrating Charlie Kirk's murdering because he's not mourning him. And therefore, if you're not mourning, you're celebrating. And that's the next thing that they're going to say. That's the next artificial line that they're going to draw, because they're going to go with, oh, the people were cheering. Oh, they weren't cheering, but they made a joke. Okay, well, they didn't make a joke, but they didn't mourn. And they didn't. So basically, they're going to just keep whittling away and, attacking people for, basically just not wanting to deal with the fact that, he shouldn't have been murdered, but he still was a piece of shit.
We don't believe in political violence, but we do believe...
We don't believe in political violence. Yeah, someone said, tell that up to Ashley Babbitt. They don't believe in political violence. They just stormed the Capitol. They don't believe in political violence. They just pardoned the people who have bashed police officers over the head and sprayed bear spray in their eyes. They don't believe in political violence, but they'll make jokes and make light and celebrate over the deaths of various people, or the attacks or the shootings of various people who are politicians, who are on the left. They don't give a shit about common decency. They don't give a shit about anything. They only care when it happens to them. They don't give a shit when it happens to us.
In civility. And there is no civility in the celebration of political assassination. Get involved.
And I'm sure these words are not going to age well, because these words are going to be, people are going to be like, oh, here's another example where JD Vance is wrong. Here's another example where JD Vance lied. Here's another example where the Republicans spoke ill of the dead, or spoke and celebrated at somebody dying. And guess what? They won't say jack shit about it.
Get involved. Get involved. It's the best way to honor Charlie's legacy. Start a chapter of TPUSA, or
go indoctrinate high schoolers and college kids.
Get involved in the one that already exists. If you're older, volunteer for your local party, write an op-ed in your local paper, run for office. I can't promise you.
Exactly, MJ Daniel. Democrats didn't make up stories about a gay lover. They were insistent. Charlie Kirk wanted to bail the assailant of Nancy Pelosi's husband out of prison. He wanted somebody locally to go bail him out of jail. Charlie Kirk literally wanted the person who committed an act of political violence to be bailed out of jail. That was funny haha to him. But we're supposed to venerate him as a saint. Fuck off. This is why you voted Republican, Mike. You voted Republican because the Charlie Kirks of the world mocked and, made fun of the fact that Nancy Pelosi's husband was assaulted in his home. And that's okay to Republicans, but, God forbid there be a few people on the left who sits there and does the happy, happy, joy, joy dance over the fact that Charlie Kirk was removed from the planet. Well, most people are not doing that. Most people on the left are only talking about, you know, his shitty statements. And the only reason we're talking about the shitty statement, look, I would have loved to have a podcast that was not all about Charlie Kirk again. I would love to be able to cover the other things that I wanted to cover, but guess what? As they continue to venerate, as they continue to raise him up on a pedestal, as they continue to say all of these things about him that are just factually untrue, making a myth out of the man, we're going to say, nope, you were wrong, and you're not going to gaslight the entirety of the population using his death to gaslight people. Because let me tell you, if mocking his death is bad, so is using his death to gaslight people and to make people think he was something that he's not.
This is going to be easy. I can't promise you that all of us will avoid Charlie's fate. I can't promise you that I will avoid Charlie's fate. But the way to honor him is to shine.
I can't promise you that I will avoid Charlie's fate. I mean, no one can know, I guess, that it's someday whether or not they might be offed. Like, is there really anybody actively going after you, Mr. Vance? I mean, come on. Seriously. Don't try and pre-make yourself into a martyr.
Shine the light of truth like a torch in the very darkest places. Go do it. We owe
in the recesses of my couch, go find the truth and some spare change and send it to Charlie's wife.
it to our friend to ensure that his killer is not just prosecuted but punished. And the worst punishment is not the death penalty, but the knowledge that Charlie's mission continues after he's gone.
So they don't want the death penalty now? What?
St. Paul tells us in the book...
okay, enough. I don't need to be quoted to about, you know, again, more religiosity coming from the White House. You know, if they actually followed what they believed, they need to go read John Fugelsang's book. Susie Jones, you ain't no light, you're a couch-humping dork. Exactly. I need to find this one. There was something that I saw online that I was trying to find as he was bloviating. It's in one of my groups. I don't know. Here we go. Here's one right here.
Far left. Fact, it is a...
We'll just play it. Or actually, we can just... Let's spread it out here. Flip back to the alternate. This wasn't the graph I saw, but here it is. JD Vance with another one of his words.
It is a statistical fact that most of the lunatics in American politics today are proud members of the far left. It is a statistical fact that most...
Yep. So there's one example where, you know, he's just telling a whole bunch of bullshit. Here's another one. U.S. political violence fatalities by ideology between 2000 and 2024. Right wing, 160 between 2000 and 2010 to 15 blue. 175 between 2011 and 2020 to 7. So the fatalities caused by people on sides of the political spectrum, 160 from the right, 15 to the left. 175 to the right, 7 to the left. 40 in the last 4 years on the right, and then 0 from the left. So, again, more proof showing that JD Vance is full of absolute and utter BS. See this article. We can pull this up. Let's see. According to Americans in a poll, this is Daily Coast, which, I mean, take this with a grain of salt. Americans are split in which size poses a bigger threat. Of all U.S. adults, 31% says left-wing violence is a bigger threat. 33% says right-wing is a bigger threat. 36% says they're not sure. Of course, you wouldn't be surprised to see this, but even among independents, 32% versus 22%. Results are clear. 2021 study published by Journal of Criminology. Only 42 incidents of politically motivated homicide. 15.6% of all incidents involved far-left extremists. In contrast, far-right extremists were responsible for 227 incidents, 84.4% of the whole. So, yeah. Tell me again, JD Vance, how the right is the peaceful, are the peaceful people, and the left are the ones that are cheering on and causing violence. Kimchi, nice play on words. So let's see. I asked Grok AI, which has a bit of a right lean, the percentage of political violence attributed to right, left, or independents. Overall, 2018 to 2021, right-wing ideologies account for the majority, 50 to 68%, often targeting government or police or minorities. Left-wing is significant in protest-related violence. 2018 to 2020, right-wing dominance with a spike of 2020 due to anti-government plots, blah, blah, blah. 2018, right-wing, 67%. Left-wing, 20%. Independent others, 13%. 2019, right-wing, 68%. Left-wing, 20%. Etc., etc., etc. Lather, rinse, repeat. And, of course, there's this one as well. We might have shown this one last time. Extremist-linked deaths from 2013 to 2022. Incidents, left-wing extremist in the blue. Domestic Islamist extremist in the yellow. Other in the gray. But yet red represents right-wing extremist. A supermajority in both incidents and killings. So tell me again, Mike Hunt, why? I said it full-throatedly this time. Mike Hunt, tell me why it is that you voted Democrat again. You said this is why you voted Republican again, because clearly it's showing that the right-wing extremism is responsible for the deaths. Show this again in a different, by decade. Although they do decades like in the middle of the decade. I guess that's how the census is done too now, right? Left-wing murders, right-wing murders. 36 to whatever this number is. 8 to 14. So in 85 and 94, you had more left-wingers. 1995 to 2004, it was all right-wingers. 2005 to 2014, 45 on the right, very few on the left. 37 to 107 in the last decade. So clearly between 95 and 2004 there was much more than any other year, but Republicans, right-wingers, conservatives, they own the political violence chart. They own it. Here's another one. United States criminal cases involving political violence by ideology. Black represents the left. Red represents, I don't know why it's black. Gray, dark gray is Islamist. Light gray is other. Red is the Republicans. Was there maybe 1 year here that maybe the left and the right are close in 2024? But everywhere else, for the most part, oh, wait, here's another one back maybe in 2006 where maybe you have a little more. But the vast majority, it's Republicans all the live long day. Good night, Jolie. Thank you for joining us. Appreciate you. Can we find any other good charts to explain what be going on here. I guess here's another one. We'll stop with this one because, I mean, this is basically beating the dead horse at this point. 2010 to 2023. 75% of political violence take part by the right, and 25% of political violence by the left. 2023 itself, 100% of the political violence by the right, 0 by the left, 90% by the right, 10 by the left, 80%, 20 by the left. Again, political violence is a right-winged problem. And the common tactic of the right is to blame other people for what you're doing. Try and save people. Donald Trump wants to tell us all about election fraud. It's because he's trying to do election fraud. Donald Trump wants to talk about the integrity of ballots. It's because he doesn't care about the integrity of ballots. He would throw out any paper ballots he thought could win him elections. So, yeah, we here at Liberal Dan Radio, Talk from the Left, that's right, are not buying into the BS that is being shoveled down our throats by this administration. That's why we need a much wider, much broader, much more diverse collection of left-wing creators who will get more seen and more visible, which is why I implore each and every one of you to get on to liberaldanradio.com, like videos, comment on videos, share them, respond to other people's comments, get engagement up. The only way that we're going to grow, the only way that any of your favorite podcasts, shows, creators, or whatever are going to grow is if y'all need to take the time to do a little bit more engagement, not just with me, but with everybody that you like and that you follow. Chucker John, Hal Sparks. I mean, Hal's doing great, but he definitely could have more. We need to have that engagement to be able to get more people seeing this so that we can do a better job of debunking the conservative lies, because we can't rely on the legacy media to do it for us, because the legacy media has time and time again showed us that they are a failure as it pertains to giving us the information that we need to hear, i.e. the truth. Let's see. Fugel saying is a genius. Yes, he is. And of course, if you haven't bought the book yet and you do want to buy the book, I'll share links again in both of the chats just so you can have it. Not only does that help John Fugelsang, it helps you and it helps me. It helps me because it's my Amazon link or whatever that I created. Helps you because you help to become more informed about the issues as John Fugelsang lays them out there. Anyway. See, Kimchi says, you worry about what's in my pants and my womb, but don't care about the billionaires that are stealing us blind without justice. You don't think deeply, huh? I mean, that's the problem, is that the conservatives try and will use, hey, what's in somebody's pants? Oh, there's trans people are coming to get you. Let's worry about what's in people's pants. Oh, let's worry about what's in somebody's uterus. They might abort. Oh, no. But meanwhile, they don't give a crap about the corporations whose negligence killed thousands and more. They don't care about the fact that hundreds of thousands of needless deaths took place from COVID-19, because to them, that was just whatever. It's not their responsibility to worry about it. Not to be their brother's keeper, right? So, wait, why do we talk about tampons now? What? Where did I miss something about tampons here? Just sometimes I'll get on my rants and I miss what's going on in the chat, I guess. See, just unlucky that the USA is fascinated by guns and not model railways. Charlie Kirk might have been shunted rather than shot in the neck. I mean, we should be fascinated with regular railways. We should have a much more robust rail system in this country. We would be in a much better place. But God forbid we actually worry about infrastructure, right? I am so confused about what's going on in tampons there. Anyway, my knee's starting to get a little sore here, sitting here. And I think I've covered all the topics I want to cover today. So unfortunately, I don't think I'll be going to the phones tonight. However, maybe we'll come back to them on Wednesday. We'll see how I feel. Depends on how beat up I am. I don't have therapy again until Thursday, so hopefully I'll be better off. But anyway, I can't square a spare. Or can't spare a square. Good Seinfeld reference. Anyway, so again, everybody, if you want to, again, since John Fugelsang was a guest of the show, I want to encourage everybody to go. If you haven't gotten the book yet, go buy the book. It helps the show out. It helps John out, and it's a great book. I definitely recommend everybody reading it. Support the show again. Help the algorithms out. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Tell other people to go subscribe to the show, subscribe to the channels, follow on Twitch. If you have Amazon Prime, you can subscribe on Twitch for free. It doesn't cost you anything. If you want to support me otherwise, Venmo Liberal Dan. Go to liberaldan.com, click the Buy Me a Cider button, or go to buymeacoffee.com/liberaldanradio. Be a Liberal Dan patron, patreon.com/liberaldan or patreon.liberaldan.com. Anyway, get you there. Anyway, till next time, unless something happens yesterday, like happened last week, hopefully, knock on wood, it doesn't, but I'll be doing the Nerdy Dan stream tomorrow, and then Wednesday we'll be doing the regular show, same bad time, same bad channel, 8 p.m. Central. Thank y'all very much for watching. Appreciate it. And y'all have a great rest of your night. Let me pull up the next song I want to play. Peace.
Bush's pictures got hidden, obscuring the past, history rewritten, hung in a hallway where no door can see, confirm his unending fragility. If Trump can't see it, you must not exist. That also includes the Epstein list, object permanent, a milestone missed. If Trump can't see it, he must not exist. Testing was the line that he said. Hundreds of thousands needlessly dead. Now HHS is run by brainworm quack, hiding the truth behind his back. If Trump can't see it, it must not exist. That also includes the Epstein list, an administration run by narcissists. If Trump can't see it, it must not exist. Of documents stacked floor to the wall, top secret folders in a bathroom stall. Charges were pressed but the case was dropped. A corrupt judicial system he can co-opt. If Trump can't see it, it must not exist. Else includes the Epstein list. He'll swear it's fake news, a liberal twist. If Trump can't see it, it must not exist. Encampments downtown, tents lining the street. Invisible people that power won't beat. Hide them away so the cameras can't find it. Proof of a system that's cold and unkind. Of chaotic secret and NDA sign. An illegal bribe, Michael Cohen fine. Trump got fined too over his gag order, but she didn't gag, cause he was much shorter. It must not exist. That also includes the Epstein list. We can't let him win, we must resist. If Trump can't see it, it must not exist.
They wrote it in the laws, ink still bleeds. Treating women like soil, just planting seeds. She's gone, brain dead, not even awake, but The state's got a claim, gonna plant its stake. Say it's God's will, say it's life they protect, but they ain't the ones feeling pain or neglect. From Texas to Georgia, they set the trap. Rights roll back while they smile and clap. Gilead's here, this is true. Hey, MAGA fools, they'll come for you too. So I'm gonna jet, see you later. I'm not gonna be a baby incubator. This ain't pro-life, it's control and shame. They don't care if she's gone, just playing a game. Keep her hooked to machines, cold and still. Just a vessel to them, not a human with will. No consent, no voice, no chance to resist. Just laws in place, written with a clenched fist. Hospitals scared, judges playing God. Bodies ain't temples, just stay on pods. Gilead's here, this is true. Hey, MAGA fools, they'll come for you too. So I'm gonna jet, see you later. I'm not gonna be a baby incubator. Bands in the dark, they don't care who it kills. Sacking courts while they strip out all of your wills. But we'll fight back, march loud, burn bright. Cause this ain't the end, it's the start of the fight. Gilead's here, ain't no grace. And those leopards are coming to eat your face. So I'm gonna jet, see you later. I'm not gonna be a baby incubator. Not gonna be a baby incubator. Not gonna be a baby incubator.
Gather round everyone and I'll tell you a tale about an orange-faced buffoon who should be in a jail. When people say he's done something that goes beyond the pale, he will shake his head and give this answer without fail. A hoax, he says it's all a hoax. When at a press conference or with misspelled keystrokes, he says he tells no lies and that he never jokes. Confronting with the truth, he'll say it's all a hoax. A modern Don Quixote, he hates the windmills, claiming to protect the birds and whales he says they kill. But don't believe that story, it's really just a shill. He just did not want to see them wild golfing on Scottish hills. A hoax, he said it's all a hoax. When at a press conference or with misspelled keystrokes, changing a storm path with black marker strokes. Confronted with the truth, to say it's all a hoax. Casting mail-in ballots is something that he's done. Now he wants to ban them for each and every one. He claims it for integrity in each election, but he won't believe the results unless it's him that's won. A hoax, he says it's all a hoax. When at a press conference or with misspelled keystrokes, they'll fool you with distractions like real sugar in Cokes. Confronted with the truth, you'll say it's all a hoax. He promised to release all the Epstein files that caused all the MAGA base to react with smiles. But how long has he put it off? It sure has been a while, and now he's calling this a hoax, protecting pedophiles. A hoax, he says it's all a hoax. When at a press conference or with misspelled keystrokes, he'll keep on gaslighting up until he croaks. Confronted
called treason if Joe's the name. Is patriotism when Donald's to blame? Had Biden done it, I don't flip. Had Biden done it, full numbers would slip. Had Biden done it, they'd shout no way. But Trump did it, so it must be okay.
The creative director at WGSO had a little something he thought you should know. When Dan picked on his bits, Steve got real gruff. So Steve called Dan a flake, called him liberal dandruff. Steve thinks that his lines are really clever, but when do people ever like him? Never. Liberal Dan's got better lyrics, this is true. Listen and you'll feel like I do. Liberal Dan, his show is great. Liberal Dan, he goes live at 8. Liberal Dan radio, it's the best, cause Liberal Dan's head and shoulders above the rest. Steve's about to find out his mistake. In this feud, Dan's Kendrick, Steve is Drake. Dan might not be the world's best singer, but he's got more talent in his little finger. Steve thinks that his lines are really clever, but when do people ever like him? Never. Liberal Dan's got better lyrics, this is true. Listen and you'll feel like I do. Liberal Dan, his show is great. Liberal Dan, he goes live at 8. Liberal Dan radio, it's the best, cause Liberal Dan's head and shoulders above the rest.